Um, Janie, Susan, Teresa, you're all very welcome for, I think is it, I don't know, is it the 7th or 8th or something like that? I can't remember that either. But I do know what I'm talking about today. So, so, so that's good. You'll be wasting your time for the main thing. Um, and yeah, so last week we really got, and we've kind of had two classes somewhat of focusing on rest and the attitude of relaxation. And last week we worked on belly breathing as well as a means of stimulating relaxation in our body when we're awake. And it is one of the building blocks, and it is a building block for today's class, which is, it was supposed to be covered a little bit last week, but things got a bit changed around as they do. Which is really looking deeper at how to do exercises and also going through a number of parts of the body and the exercises that we can do for them, which will help us. And it's kind of it's getting the exercises the right way is really key. I'm a really firm believer that we need to stimulate our muscles. If we don't stimulate our muscles, we will lose them a lot faster. And that's been brought to me in several different times and in different ways, which I'll go through just to try and convince you of the importance of it. The first major occasion or insight into using the muscles was when I came out of hospital and I was 66 kilos. And it was 140 pounds and I'm 5'11". So, that's a good 30 pounds underweight, at least. Yeah, I'd be falling asleep, 8 or 9 times a day. I would be doing things, just the basic things of getting dressed and washing and eating would leave me that fatigued that I'm kind of sleeping more or less on and off all day long. And so when I was awake then, I would be resting a lot of the time as well. And my main thing that I was focused on getting back was walking. That was my number one thing. In hindsight, I should have put more energy into restoring my breathing process at an earlier stage. I should have put more energy into that, because if I had more capacity to breathe, I would have been able to support my legs better for walking. So that's that little bit of learning. But over a period of months, and that's really all I was doing, was doing minimum jobs at home, basically hygiene, food, a bit of walking, and a bit of PlayStation as well, which was actually good for the hands because it's lots of micro movements for the hands. So interestingly, I actually had found that previously made a difference, and I was back doing it because it's your hands in their most natural shape holding onto the controller. And they do that deliberately to reduce repetitive strain injury, because kids do it for hours and hours and hours. So it's not actually, it's quite sensible to understand that it's a good thing for your hands to do. As long as you don't mind losing a lot. So that's all I was doing. And I noticed that at some stage that I had some muscle had come back on my back. And I was wondering, how did that happen? How did that physically happen? Because it was quite noticeable from skin and bone to actually having a bit more than that. Because I had no fat on me either, so it was really skin and bone. And because I wasn't stimulating my back, doing anything, I wasn't swimming, I wasn't lifting. I mean, I was bending over a little bit, getting dressed. Now that was about it, really, So because bending over at all would meant that I couldn't belly breathe, and so my breathing was pushed onto my chest. My chest muscles weren't there. So I would go into labored breathing immediately once I bent over. So how did it actually my back develop muscle again? And I came to the conclusion that it was due to two things, both of which I've talked about, so I won't go into detail on them. But one of them was the shoulder massager, and I showed you before. Just show it again briefly. Not to turn it on. Yeah, but that's it there. So the weight of your own arms creates some pressure for this, and there's infrared lights in the back here as well. I don't know if they had any effect. Maybe they did, but I'd always wear clothes. I always had it on my clothes, at least a t-shirt, if not more than that. And so you have this rotary movement going up in wheels here, turns around, and they're different sizes. So you get this stimulation of your muscles, and I'd let that, I'd kind of work that down my back. So that and the Chi machine were the only things that were actually stimulating my back. And the Chi machine is, well, I was able to lie down and do it. So I was lying down, back was moving back and forth, 100 to, 40 times a minute or something like that. And so this is it. I'm practical. There was no magic wands or voodoo or whatever. There's no magic tricks. It was that. So that really convinced me about it. And the second thing was more recently, because in January I had problems with lung infection and throat infection, and it was very hard for me to go outside, or a lot more difficult. So I wasn't walking so much, and I wasn't swimming either. So both of them went down. So my physical stimulation went down, and I lost 2 kilos in weight, even though I was having the same amount of proteins and food as what I had done. So I'm just, very direct in my thoughts that actually I've lost this weight, which was from my back and the back of my legs. So it really does relate to swimming and walking. So we do need to stimulate our muscles, and there's lots of ways of doing that. I'll also point out, you may or may not be relevant, but it's in one of the issues of the newsletter. I think it's in the first or second one. There's a machine called a quadricizer. And basically you can be moved from a wheelchair onto it. And obviously somebody has to do that, or unless you're well enough yourself. And then there's straps that goes around the forearms and the upper arms, and the same with the legs as well. So basically it's like it's puppeting your arms and your legs. That's really what it's doing. And there's all different programs. Now this equipment is $20,000. I know, because one of the other members, she looked it up, and but it looks like it takes up a huge amount of space, and she said no, it doesn't. You can actually fit it into a lot of sitting rooms. You could fit it into it. But the quadricizer, and really, if you've lost a lot of mobility, or it's a big strain to do anything physical, and financially you can afford it, then it's really well worth it, because you don't have to do anything. So it's like the Chi machine, and like the back and neck massagers. I'm not doing anything. I'm just lying there. It's all passive activity on my part. And it's the same with this machine, the quadricizer. It's passive activity on your part. Now, you can put your energy into the movements as well. So if you have that, you can make that contribution. And but what level of contribution can you make? My policy is one in which you remain at rest. You remain in a state of rest. So normally they talk about exercise as in the range of movement, how far you can go. But that includes the full strain that you can do on your hands or legs or back or wherever that is the full range. And of course, there's a lot of strain in that, and that means we're maxing out the neuron signals to the body to be pressing. Because although we're not lifting weights, we're pressing against our joints. That's where the strain is, against our joints and our tendons. And we can go full on with that. If you push as far back as you can, you're putting all your strength into those exercises. So that's the range of movement. So for us, it's a different approach. The approach is the range of comfort. To what degree is it comfortable for you to move to? And that's the limit. Because once we go beyond the range of comfort, we're starting to put a strain on ourselves and our motor neuron signal is going up. But we can move within the range of comfort and stimulate our muscles without spiking our motor neuron signal. So range of comfort is the way to go. And I've done this for, this approach has been enough for me to not be able to use a pool. And when I started off going into one with big steps going into this pool, so it wasn't a straight down jog, like, steps and a rail. And I'd get in and stay standing. And all I'd do is move my arms a bit. That was it. Any more than that, and I would be pushing them. So like that, I take out. So I've gone from there to swimming 400 to 500 meters. And I haven't, I mainly haven't strained myself. Now, there's a couple of times with some strokes and you push too hard, a little bit too hard, and boom, that's it. Something actually gets strained. So it had to be very careful with that from that point of view as well. But it was just softly. And really, that's all I did for months and months, was just softly. Just stay softly. Eventually, well, I was swimming enough, but I was going so slow that it was taking me too long. And so then I decided that actually, well, let's try and go a bit faster and see what that's like. And I was then able to go faster, and it was still, for the muscles, soft. It wasn't strained, and I had to do things like with the breaststroke. I'd have my fingers open, not closed, because closed was too much strain, and then there'd be pulling muscles. So open, so the movement is there, but not the strain. And who cares about how far you go anyway? It doesn't matter. So these are some of the key teaching things in how to exercise, how to approach exercise, how to approach stimulating our muscles. And welcome to Natalia. I'm glad you're able to join us. So the range of comfort, that's it, the range of comfort, staying in that relaxed state. So we've covered the relaxed state a bit, so I'm not going to redo that. And we've also covered last week belly breathing, which is inducing a state of relaxation. So before doing any kind of exercise, and that can just mean what you're doing physically, because that's already enough of a challenge. So it doesn't even have to be, a fitness exercise. It can just be standing or walking or brushing your teeth. It really doesn't matter. It's whatever starts to put a strain on you. So before doing it, you do some belly breathing, so the body is in a slightly more relaxed state. We take it into a slightly more relaxed state, and then we can start to do whatever it is, and we can stop and go back into the relaxed state every, depending what it is, every minute or 2 minutes or every 30 seconds. And there was, when I came out of that bad episode in the hospital, which was just before COVID kicked off, yeah, look, I got out of there just in time, a couple of weeks before it kicked off, so my walking was very limited, but I already had all this methodology, was all in place. I knew how to respond. And so even before I left the hospital, I'd be practicing my walking. And there was at one stage, when I was back home, and it was nighttime, and I think pretty sure it was winter anyway, which is like 6 months of the year. But it was cold and dark, and I was walking back, and yeah, my step went from the the 12-inch shuffle to the 6-inch shuffle, and I could really feel the strain in my legs. I had overdone it, and I wasn't very far away, but I was also too far away in this state. So I went back into relaxation and reduce the strain. Instead of trying to try more, I tried less. So it's the opposite of what we're so used to doing, but what we do automatically is try harder. No, try less, try softer, reduce it, and then see. And with that reduction, I shortened my step, I relaxed. What's the worst thing that can happen? I'd ring a taxi on my phone and get taken around. I mean, it's okay. So, whatever. I'll deal with reality as it comes. And make the best possible choices that I can make. So I'm not going to worry about that. Right now, the best choice I can make is to get into a deeper state of relaxation, and from there, and with that, take my steps. And when I was walking, my steps, I don't really do it anymore. I had mantras for it. So with each step, it was like relax, 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 relax. And really, just in my mind, because I didn't have the air to actually say it outside, out loud. Just in my mind, relax, relax, relax. Softly, softly, softly. And yeah, I had some other ones as well. Because what I was doing to heal. All the actions I'm doing, we're doing them to heal. So you can incorporate that into the step as well. So it becomes healing, 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 healing. So each step is an act of healing. Then your walk, whether it's 5 steps or 50 steps or 500 steps, it's that many steps of healing with each action. And if you can really combine relaxation with physical activity, then everything you do can become an act of healing, because once you're in that relaxed state, you're in a healing process as well. And so that's the ideal. That's the ideal. And I had 35 years of meditation experience, so I had some background to help me understand that and to keep stepping into it and keep returning into it. And we lose it and we step back, and we lose it and we step back. And that's just normal. We just accept that. It's nothing to be frustrated about. The success is stepping back. And so once we notice we've stepped, away from relaxation, we belly breathe and we step back into it again. And that's it, because we can't force ourselves. We're not superhuman or robots or whatever, that we have the right direction all the time. It's just when we find we don't have it, we take a step to have the right direction again. And that's enough to stimulate the healing process, taking a step to have the right direction. Excuse me. So I want to describe a little bit of exercise for walking, and also related to the throat mouth area. So a friend of mine was a sports massage therapist, amongst his other therapeutic massage qualifications. And he saw me walking with the occasional dropped foot. He saw there was a problem with my walking. This was back in 2014. And I never related to anything, even though the twitching was going on in my legs at the time. So he saw it happening, and he talked and explained to me this walk, which is sometimes called heel step walk, is one of the names for it. I looked for videos on before, and I found it hard to find a good video. So one of these days I promised to do them, but don't wait. So we'll just try to. Oh no, can I take off my shoe and demonstrate it on the screen? Like, maybe let's see if this works. So it is walking. You're on both your feet, and you could do this on a walker as well. That's not a problem at all. Or if you're leaning on something on the side, that's fine too. That's okay. It's about the focus is how you use your feet, because if you use your feet more completely, then that will have a much bigger stimulation up your leg and into your back as well. It'll actually affect your whole body, will go into sync better the better that you walk. So it's called heel toe step, and we're just interested really in the movement of the foot in contact with the ground, not actually the swing of it forwards, just its contact in the ground. So there is an image to use with this, which is imagining your foot is shaped like a banana, right? So it has imagining, of course it's not shaped that way, but just to imagine it. So the idea of this banana shape is that you're rolling forwards. So when you come down with your heel, and you're imagining yourself rolling forwards. And because sometimes we tend to kind of slap a bit in different ways. And it doesn't matter where your step is at, how good or bad it is. We're just trying to lean into this, putting the heel down, or a little bit, if we're already slapping and we're making, a slap there, which I had that I don't know how many times that I had it, that it came and went. I'd have it for a few months, and I would practice this step, and it would go again, and then I'd stop and it would come back. And so what you do is that the try to get the heel down first, and it's a rolling forwards. And as you roll forwards, you don't just lift the your foot off, but you actually try and lift off with your toes. I'm exaggerating here, like your foot, obviously your foot doesn't go in that. We'd all just fall over, like, and our face would be in the dirt if we did it that way. So I am exaggerating a bit, but just to give you the image. So yeah, it's coming down on the heel and it's rolling forwards. It's a rolling motion. It's that sense of rolling the foot. And so this way the foot gets a full contact. And with the toes, when we go along and we're pushing pressure on the toes, we actually get this kind of slight spring off. So our toes push off. And I had no strength at all in the toes of my right foot at one stage. None. There was just none there. I'll come back. Yeah, actually, I'll talk about that. And that was the beginning of me using this technique. Well, it wasn't the beginning of it. It was the worst stage my foot was at. I had no real movement in my ankle. I had no movement in my toes. I'd lost flesh off my foot. So it was actually even hard just to balance on them. My walking was pretty much reduced to inside the home, and it was like having a peg leg. That's how I was treating it. I could walk if I treated it like a peg leg, which meant having none of this movement going on at all. So I got out of hospital and one of the many times, and yeah, my foot was in really bad condition, and I had this very thick it's a physiotherapy mat, so it's about 4 to 6 times thicker than a yoga mat. So there's a deeper strength and support in it, and you know, that's what I would do. I would just walk back and forth, like, you know, 6 steps down or 8 steps, whatever it was anyway, down the mat and turn around and come back up again, and that's it. I would just keep repeating this, putting this pressure on, and because I had no stimulation in my toes at all, what I used to do was I'd put, I was in a standing position, on a walking position, a standing position, I'd lift my right foot up, and I'd use my weight to push my toes back, if you understand. Yeah, I push my toes back by standing on them, if you can understand. So you can imagine my toes inside the shoe. Yeah. And so by pushing the top of it back, it was like that. So this would push my toes in. So yeah, I would do that, and I would actually use my weight to try and push as much, because it was a stimulation, even though they weren't really doing any work, but it was stimulating them into activity. And I really think it's a big thing which pals don't do enough of, or they do too much of the wrong way. And yeah, I kept doing it. I just kept doing it. I just didn't stop. I had problems with my breathing as well, and because of the weak chest muscle. So, you know, so I was in a very weak state. Well, it was, yeah, and I was very much despairing at that stage as well. I wasn't confident in my ability to reverse. I was confident in the possibility of improving my health. And I stayed with that because that was something which is always true. It's always possible that our health can improve. And that was my rock, not a certainty that I couldn't actually be certain about. So that was enough for me to go, well, I know it's possible, so I'll just do what I can. And at the end of the day, that's a much more peaceful place to be in then expecting to do something which we don't actually know if we can do. And then we're in more turmoil, and that turmoil is sucking the energy out of us instead of being in a more peaceful place and having that energy available for healing. So it is a very much a psychological process as well. So that, and I remember now, there was one other exercise that I did. It really belongs in a different place, but I'll mention it here. Like my left leg was reasonable. It was pretty much, yeah, there wasn't anything. Even when the motor neurons were tested in it a year or two later, it has remained okay. It lost strength because I wasn't using it for walking either. You know, when I couldn't use the right, I couldn't. Then it's very hard to use the left. So it did go downhill, but not from motor neuron damage so much. Anyway, it wasn't too bad at that time. Like I could use all the muscles in it. I'd lie on the couch, and I thought I have to teach my body again what it needs to do. Now, if I'm trying to send the signal straight from my brain, you know, which is the biological normal thing that we do, then that's going to be the full-on faulty motor neuron signal. So I'm going to try and do this a different way. So I'd sit on the couch, and I would just look at my left foot, the one I had some control over, and I'd squeeze the toes on my left foot, and I just asked my right foot to do the same. And I wouldn't look at my right foot. I just keep focusing on my left foot and asking my right foot to do the same thing. And much later, I found out that this is a technique that they use for teaching stroke patients to rehabilitate the side of their body that's been damaged from stroke. They asked people learn to ask it to imitate the healthy side. And this kind of, I don't know how it works, but it works. And it worked for me, and it works for stroke patients. So so it's moving slightly into to another area. So going back to the step. So if you have a better step, there's another thing which I still practice on because I'm trying to get my stride longer, and and that's to it's so physical now. Yeah, it's to swing the toes further forward. So the toes get swung further forward, and you get a slightly longer stride. It stretches things in a slightly different way, staying in the relaxed state and all of that. No pressure, no strain, but swing the toes kind of out as far as possible, staying in a relaxed rhythmical walk. And the other one then is focusing on pressing off with the toes, pressing off with the toes, pressing off with the toes. I've tried doing the two at the same time, and I have been able to do that. So I just focus, both feet now, but I just focus on one of them. So for those, yeah, I mean, I've practiced those two, you know, that pressing off with the toes and swing the toes as far forward as possible. I've practiced them more when my walking had improved. It had a long way to go. Now it's quite normal. I can't. Oh, well, I have the tightness in my calf still. I haven't actually gotten rid of that. But my foot's, yeah, is normal, you know, functionally on any good day. On bad days, things are different, but on any normal good day. So that all recovered, it all improved. So yeah, now I'm actually able to go up on both sets of my toes. You know, and that's taken a few years now of work. but that my right, yeah, it's really doing it. So it all pays off, and we want to try and have exercises which we can just fit into what we're doing. And so our doing becomes a soft, relaxing, stimulating exercise. And then it has more meaning. We're not just doing that thing. We're doing something which is healing for us. So that's on walking. I'm just trying to. Oh yeah. So if I don't cover everything tonight, I'll come back to it next week, or we'll work it out anyway. So yeah, is there any questions about that? Okay. If anything occurs to you, let me know. So the other area, so we did belly breathing last week. That's walking. I also mentioned, did I? Or maybe you were dull there for that. We're using the controller for the PlayStation on the hands, because they're designed to prevent repetitive strain injury. So you do these micro motions with your fingers. So it's a very light, stimulating thing to do for your hands. It's a lightweight object as well. And your hands are busy then doing something. Just put it on easy settings so you lose less. That's my advice. I think it's one of the easiest things to actually do for us as an exercise on our hands. And have a bit of fun as well. So we did that and that. Belly breathing, walking, that. So the other area I want to cover is the throat, neck, swallow, all of this. And when I started to notice my swallow going slower, and this was during the summer, so it wasn't an environmental effect of conditions being harsher, more stressful. I didn't have any other health issue going on, really. So it was just happening. And I noticed going slower, and I was clearing my throat more, and it was, this sort of stuff. And then one night I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, or sometime then, and I could have broke up because I couldn't. I woke up because I couldn't breathe at all. I was totally blocked at the back of my throat, and so I can't breathe. And my first thought was, well, I knew already. I didn't even think. I knew, well, if I don't breathe, I'm going to be dead in a few minutes. We don't even think that. My first real thought was that, second, whatever, was, well, I'm not going to die in a panic. If I'm going to die now, I'm going to die calmly. I'm not going to panic about this. And I was okay. I'm okay with that. If this is that moment, that's fine. All right. And it's great because then there's no panic. So, Mom said I was relaxed. So, right, let's see if I can clear the throat now. See if I can live, And I was able to clear the throat. So and I went back to sleep and everything, I was really okay. So the next day I cut all dairy out of my diet to reduce the gacky stuff at the back of the throat, and started dealing with it. I was coughing because what's it called? The epiglottis. The sphincter. Does anybody know? It's not the epiglottis. So does anybody know the word I'm thinking of? Oh, great! This isn't typing it. Oh. That sphincter type of muscle which closes to prevent food and liquid going into the windpipe. which is such a it's so prevalent in this illness for going downhill. And there was one time Crum went in the wrong way, down into the windpipe. Now, I do have another medical condition as well, so it's even much more easily inflamed and problematic. The epiglottis, thank you, Susan, the epiglottis. I wasn't too far away with the epiglottis, was I? epiglottis, forget epiglottis, epiglottis. And so I thought about it for a while because, you know, I'd already been around some of the circles of doing alternative things for ALS to repair the body, and you know, I hadn't heard about anything for it. So I'm very good at thinking about things slowly in a non-panicked way, and just, yeah, in a very direct way. And so I put my hand up to my neck and wonder, what can I do? Is there anything that I could do about this? And after a while, I realized that it's something that I think, let me know what it was, but that we've all done, which is gargle. We've all gargled, and when we're gargling, we're pushing air out, and we're opening and closing the epiglottis. So gargling is there's an actual exercise we can do to stimulate the epiglottis. It's there. We've got it. That's it. Now, it took me, I don't know, a little while to make that connection. And so I started doing dry gargling, because I didn't want to be gargling, having a failing epiglottis and then stuff going in. That was like the opposite. So I did dry gargling for about 2 weeks, because there was very little gargle sound or sensation happening at first. And I always did it when I wasn't tired. I don't exercise when I'm tired. I just don't do it. I rest when I'm tired. So even for small things like, gargling, stimulation, only when my energy is good, because then my chances of success are at their best. And so I get the best stimulation I can, and then relax. So, the most, and we'll come to it. We might come to it. No, we won't come to it today. But one of the things that I have in my schedule, which is in the newsletter, I'll talk more about this. I'll come back to it, don't worry. The schedule of activities, and one section of it is physical focus. What part of my body do I want to make my number one priority for improving now? Today, this week, this month, whatever makes sense for you. So at that stage, it was, my neck, and particularly the epiglottis, because a slow swallow was easier to get away with than an epiglottis that wasn't closing, which was so much more dangerous for all the breathing. And then the coughing starts, and then the coughing is exhausting, and then we're exhausted, and everything else is more difficult, and we're on the vicious circle then. And so we want to try and avoid the vicious circle of flaring problems as much as possible. So this was my number one focus, was getting the epiglottis working back. And after about 2 weeks of practice, and it's slowly improving, and this is the technique, did it when my energy was good, was at its more or less at its best, or at least it was good. And And 2 weeks later, I was gargling with water, with liquid, with a little bit of honey and warm water, whatever, and something nice, nothing unpleasant, something nice. And that really was it. That was enough to get my epiglottis working again. I did something a little bit similar with the swallow. So I would swallow when I wasn't swallowing anything. So yeah, it's a danger-free exercise. It takes a little bit of getting used to, and you don't have to do it a lot. We just do this type of exercise at first, just for the body to get used to doing it, so our body feels comfortable making a bit of an effort like this. Doing this new type of exercise is an effort, because it's new. So once it gets used to it, so it doesn't feel new anymore. And once we've done that, maybe we can do a little bit more depending on how we respond. So it's the same for the swallow or the gargling. So that's those two muscles. Then we have where's it gone? Oh no, brain, come back. Oh yes, that's right. There's another one which is the voice box or larynx, and it was really a problem for me because I'd had larynxal spasm, so my larynx itself kept going into spasm, and it would close over in spasm, and then I would cough to open it because my lungs are being blocked, and it was exhausting. So it made it very difficult to talk and communicate. I had to try and keep my mouth closed, and it's really a problem. And they tried on a lot of steroids and different things to get it right. In the end, the pulmonary consultant, put me on morphine. He said it's something that we used to use actually sometimes to treat coughs that don't respond to anything else, and it worked. It was the thing that it prevents my throat to being inflamed, so the pressure just eases off, and it's not as reactive, and it stays in a more relaxed state. And there's nothing else that really does it like that. So I try to live healthier, so I don't actually need to do that kind of thing. Fortunately, I've no addiction problems, so that was easy for me. Yes, the larynx. The simplest thing to do with the larynx is to hum. So when we're humming, our larynx is vibrating, and it's a simple vibration. It also means it doesn't matter how our mouth is performing. We can have our mouth closed or open with a shape. It doesn't matter. And that's a nice thing. It doesn't matter if we're just making some sound in our larynx. And if we're making some sound in the larynx and we have a bit of air, our chances are that we'll be able to maintain speech much longer than is normal. Because we're doing the belly breathing, we're relaxed, our speech will be more relaxed, and we're giving a bit of supportive exercise to the larynx as well. So that's being stimulated. Because if we're no longer talking, then we're not stimulating our larynx either. So if our mouth isn't working well enough and our talking isn't understood, we still want to stimulate our larynx so that we're supporting our ability to talk. Because imagine we go along and get some of our muscle back in our face, but we don't then go and get our larynx back, so we still can't talk because that one's gone. So we want to stimulate that. And then we can stimulate it with low tones, medium tones, high tones. I have one lady who did it, and she got so into it like that she actually completely overdid it and lost some of her voice. So everything in balance. She kind of did it she really got into it, and she spent hours doing it one day, and then she was totally hoarse. There wasn't any long-term damage done from her over-exercise, but it just shows you that humming is enough of an exercise to stimulate us. And that's the key, is to keep it these small stimulating exercises. So humming, and you can explore that if there's sounds that you like. If you want, you can hum along with music, or you can develop it a little bit if that's your personality. And that's really up to you, whatever works for you. So it's humming, and the other thing, now there's and it's in the October issue, there are EMS devices for the whole face. And if I wasn't speaking clearly, or if I was going into numb face syndrome, I don't know if they have a name for that, where your face hardly moves at all. The muscles are just, not responsive. And I could hardly even open my mouth at one point. I was able to get jam two fingers between my teeth, just about. But my teeth were biting them. Now I have 3 fingers between them, and some. So one of the things that I did was, because I didn't have any finger strength, so I used to use my knuckles just to massage the face. This is sort of in the earlier days, I suppose, of my reversal. And it's just enough because I also wasn't talking much. I was very isolated. I was homeless, I had so many problems, and too many problems to even be able to talk about them. That's really where I was at a lot of the time. So just using the knuckles, and then that, because that was it, and that's what I did. Whatever you just keep at it, keep working at it, and you get into it over a while. You go, oh yeah, it's a bit more tense there, so I'll just give that a bit more of a rub. And so I suppose you still need your arms for this, not so much your fingers, but you still need your arms a bit for it. But we have to do what we can do. So what else I do? Yeah, just having I still actually do this one. I've been practicing this one more recently, which is letting the mouth relax as much as possible, because we often have tension which goes into our jaw, and so our jaw becomes fixed in a strained place. So by letting our jaw go loose and shaking it back and forth, so we have a small exercise of the neck, of moving the neck. It's only a small exercise with the relaxed jaw, and then so we don't need to use our hands or arms for that one at all. And it's just all this small little bits, and they all add up. This is the thing; they all add up. So just to have this, decide what's our primary focus in exercise. And if there are things that you want me to cover for that, other parts of the body that you want to ask about for exercise approach, we can do that. I probably won't do it now, though, because we're really at that time. We're just finishing up now. And is that everything for that? Yeah, I think that's everything I'd set out to do today.